Hey everybody, it's Drew Dracy, and I wanted to talk Wally Wood because why not? Fantastic, and it's been argued, and I would sort of agree that he was the world's greatest comic book artist when he did his stuff at EC Comics specifically. But then EC Comics went under because of the Comics Code. It was created by the competitors, and it crushed EC, which is, I imagine, Wally Wood never recovered from it. And how could you? I mean, EC Comics were selling way above many other competitors, but somehow, that Wortham guy screwed shit up, and then it was just an opportunity. And after that, Wally Wood, he bounced around a lot, but he also did finishes a lot more than he did pencils. When he did Thunder Agents, which I'll cover in another episode, he was sort of running that whole thing. It was a double-sized magazine with a lot of different creators, and he penciled a lot of the stuff. So, but before then, we got treated to him coming to Marvel, and I may be wrong. This might be the first thing he's done, but Stan Lee was so impressed that he wrote, "Under the brilliant artistic craftsmanship of famous illustrator Wally Wood, Daredevil reaches new heights of glory." And I would say sure. I'm going to breeze through this though, because there's a lot of other channels that will cover, probably already covered this stuff. Immediately, the D is made into a double D overlapping. Here we go. Personal note. And now we found him. With no further ado, we announced our newest creative team, Stan Lee, a Wallace Wood illustrator. He usually goes by, in real life, he goes by Wallace, but Wally was in the credits a lot, kind of a shorthand, like a lot of people, kind of like Stan Lee, Stan Lieber. So I'm not going to go over too much about his penciling, that because it's already so sublime and beautiful and unique, and there's nothing like it. So that's kind of interesting there. That's like the only time I can really tell that Wood used a photo reference, because his style is so strong that it doesn't appear that way generally. Here's next issue. He did several issues. Magnificent restoration on this Marvel Masterworks. And here it is, baby. Out of the blue. I've secretly worked for months to resign my... I've secretly worked for months to redesign my fighting costume to make it more comfortable, more distinctive. But I had never expected to wear it against such a fantastic foe. And you know what? That's still one of my top 5 comic book designs ever. It's so simple and elegant, and it's red like, Devil as in Daredevil. And I like some of the other Daredevil costumes, but they always go back to the basics. That's the standard. And even when I was a kid, it wasn't even like there was a lot of details to work on. It was just simplicity. I love the idea of a blind lawyer who had all these enhanced abilities and just got by with sheer moxie, taking on the friggin' Submariner. So, great stilt man. So, great stuff. Well, here's what happens later. It was a brief love affair, you might say, between Stan and Wally. Wally was getting kind of upset that he wasn't getting enough plotting credit because he did a substantial amount of plotting. I mean, at this point, Stan was sort of saying, well, let's have this happen. Boop, 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 boop. Now you got a story. And, you'd be here like, what? He talked for about a minute. So you have to fill in the blanks. So he was really disappointed. So Bob Powell, which I doubt he goes by Bobby Powell, because I've never seen his name that way before, he does the layouts, and he does the mid-drawing. Basic layouts by Wally Wood, and the tightening pencils by Bob Powell, and then Wally Wood inked it. So you're seeing Wally Wood, and anything he inks becomes Wally Wood, and fandom is all the better for it. So I love those night scenes, especially when Daredevil knocks out the lights and kicks people around and they can't see. A second. Hang in there. Just drink it in. Drink it in, everybody. Okay, now. 1 second. What happened was they had a good thing going, and Stan was kind of being not very. It was kind of rude, actually. Stan did a lot of good stuff, but he also had times of strong insensitivity. And if you're in charge of a publishing company, and especially with, sometimes you have to make snap decisions, and a lot of times they're good, a lot of times they can be wrong. Case in point, Silver Surfer #4 with John Buscema, which is one of the most beautiful books that Marvel put out. And Stan hated it. He hated it, and it crushed John Buscema, and he basically was told to draw shorter panels, smaller panels, more like Kirby, bombastic, not this Baroque Michelangelo style, which we loved, but I think he wanted to get more out of John Buscema, and that's a shame. So, that was kind of, Stan was wrong, but anyway. But it's here. Wally Wood has always wanted to try his hand at writing a story as well as drawing it. Never mind that he did that a lot in EC. And big-hearted Stan, who wanted to rest anyway, said, okay, so what follows next is anyone's guess. You may not like it, or you may like it or not, but be sure of this, it's going to be different. So, wow. Damning with the faintest of praise. So this is the very last issue that Wood worked on, and this is just photo stats rearranged. Very similar to Steve Ditko, like his last two covers for Marvel, Strange Tales 146 with Doctor Strange, as well as Spider-Man 38, were both photo stats of interior art. So, let's see. Okay. Wally Wood wrote part 1 of this two-parter last ish, just for a lark. But now it's up to sly old Stan to put all the pieces together and make it come out okay in the end. Can you do it? See for yourself. So, Wally was very wounded by this. I mean, understandably so. So he left after this. John Romita took over Kirby layouts. But, however, for a lot of the 60s and the 70s, Wally Wood, he became more of an inker. He consigned himself to the role of an inker with books that he did not own, like Wit's End and Thunder Agents. So, let's see, another job. These are, the next few examples I'm going to give you are they're about the same time, like within a few months of each other. While Daredevil 9 was coming out, Wood tried to promote it, and he did inks on Daredevil in the entirety of issue 39, which is really cool. And it stands out so much because Vinnie Coletta was inking the book at the time. No, not this time, actually. The next issue. This is Frank Ray. That's Frank Giacoya's pseudonym, and I love Giacoya. He's just so sharp and brass. And here we go. First thing we see is Matt Murdock, and you can tell it's like by Wood. Wood has this brilliant ability to take no matter how small a figure and put the bow of the lip, between the nose and the top lip. He gets that in there somehow, and that is no easy feat. So, Matt's there. He had met the FF in Daredevil 2. He's there on retainer, and FF are powerless. Reed wants to have a will saying where all his scientific notes be given to the government and charitable organizations, etc., etc. And then, things start happening. Gotta change it to Wally Wood Daredevil right away. Man, I love that. There you go. You got that bow on the lip. That's so distinctive Wood. And the rest is Giacoya. It works out pretty well, actually. But if Coletta had done this, it would have been really awful. So, more and more. And he was doing this to promote Daredevil. He's on Daredevil. So it's like Stan wasn't fully recognizing that Wally was being a team player. It's like, give him a little something, But I think maybe the stuff with Ditko probably got on Stan's nerves, and because it was sort of unprecedented in mainstream superhero comics that the artist gets, if it's not the writer-artist, that the artist wouldn't get credit for their part of the storyline. So, what's done is done. So, yeah, see the contrast of those faces? But, next issue, Vinnie Coletta stinks up the place. These real cheap, you know, she's got no nose. So that was that, and I love that. So next we go to then we go to the Avengers Omnibus, and Wood started inking all kinds of titles for Marvel. Sometimes at the same time. They may or may not have been published at the same time, but this is pretty close. So here's what came out at the time. It's great. This omnibus for the Avengers. First, Avengers Omnibus has the original letters page. So see, you got Daredevil 9 there. You got X-Men 12. You've got Spider-Man 28. This is 3 issues after Ditko, insisted on getting plotting credit, which is good. And then there's a storyline where Wally Wood comes aboard. There's a cover that he does in a few issues. So, yeah, he just makes everything amazing. So much so, this is while still Daredevil was around. Special note to art lovers: wait till you see wonderful Wally Wood's inks of Dawn's drawings in this issue. I love that cover. I wonder if he did. Quicksilver's hair looks like it was done by Wally Wood. But Don Heck I love anyway. I loved his version of Cap's Kooky Quartet, as Steve Englehart called them. And however, Wally Wood's just icing on the cake. Makes everything better. Everything. He's just great. There's nothing more to... So, I love the drama of that. Okay. Bear taste of defeat. This was the one mistake where Kirby put an A on his chest instead of a star, but that's okay. It's one of those fun little things. And besides, he was drawing 98% of the Marvel Universe. So, some more. Wood does great soft features, and he does great hair. And everybody gets a bow on the lip they're supposed to get. Power Man. I've always loved that original costume. Sure, it's kind of goofy, but I like it. I like it, damn it. Okay. The Road Back. I had this reprint. Marvel Triple Action was one of my very first comics as a kid. I was real little, and I was just really happy with it. I loved Captain America. I loved the side story, and they broke up, but I understood. It wasn't that complex for me to understand as a kid, and that's never Wally Wood. Yeah, then it becomes John Romita. So, which is great. We all love John Romita. Yes, we do. Now we go over to Crash. Where I crash everything with my camera. The sole contribution to the original X-Men, unfortunately, somehow I folded this wrong, is Wally Wood on this book, just on the cover. And I really studied it. I was kind of skeptical at first, and it was only when, like the X-Men coming through the window are too small to tell, but that guy's face right next to Angel, between him and Professor X, that's Wally Wood right there. Definitely. Sorry, I had a cough there. But here's a Wally Wood face if I've ever seen one. And he's got the bow on his lip, and it's a tiny little head. Not even the size of a dime. That's that. And then, come along. I love these painted covers. They're so neat. Here's one where he inked Kirby, and at first I had a hard time telling because the original printing and many subsequent reprints were so dark it was hard to tell anything of evidence of Wally Wood. Marvel Pop Art Productions. I love that, Pop Art Productions. And when I look at the Absorbing Man's big old head, I see that line work. Then I could see it. And also, Odin's features are really strong. That's very Wood. So, he hopped all around the Marvel Universe. And he was inking one of my favorites again. Iron Man from Iron City Beer. Wally Wood inking. And there's the bow and the lip right there. And it's so great. I love Titanium, man. What a great design by Don Heck. That is really cool. And it lasted a long time. It had alterations. And then later on in the 80s, when Bob Layton returned to Iron Man for the second run, he redesigned Titanium Man. But this kind of stuff just gives you all kinds of, I mean, having lack of color there is just really great. It's like a room light. And this is my favorite panel. It's like, you don't get a tummy ache, do we? Here, let me burp you. So Wood just makes it shine all over again. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, and next we go to, hold on everybody, I got a lot of books here as you can tell. Okay, oh yeah, talk among yourselves. Okay, and for a time, Wood hadn't, he worked for himself for Tower Comics, which lasted about 2 years or so, and I have an episode on this issue already. That is a Marie Severin cover. I don't know who inked it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wood inked it. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. But, I mean, you've never seen Gene Colan like this before. And we hadn't since. It's just an amazing combination. I just wish there was more Wally Wood to go around. Oh man, I remember seeing this ad and being totally jazzed for it, but I was so upset because by the time I got the comic, it was like 5 years after the fact. There was no Marvel Mania. Even I knew it wasn't still around. So great stuff. Like I said, I'm gleaning this because I've already done a whole episode on it. And as we get into the early 70s, Wally Wood did a bunch of stories in Tower of Shadows, as well as Chamber of Chills, but they actually were more like elfin type, barbarian type adventures, like real childish ones, childlike characters, but they were cool. But I'm not showing it because I'm not showing all his pencils. I'm showing his inking. I'm focusing on that. Blah, 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 blah. So, Marie Severin and Wally Wood. Wow. The cover's got to be Wood as well. His rendering is just so comforting. If that's not, it's really cool. It's striking, and it's got this comfort to it. I think Jod Percival had a style even in 1973. It's always wearing Jod Percival, they're not riding a horse. they're up to no good. So there she is. Face before that. Come on. That is great. There, that last page. Marie just tells a fantastic story, and Wally brings it home. So cool stuff. Now we get into the mid 70s. Like I said, there's a lot of indie stuff he did as well that I'm not going to get into. But for 4 issues of The Destructor from Atlas Comics, which was a Martin Goodman's Vengeance Incorporated is what it was called. It was Martin Goodman was upset that when he stepped down, the people who owned Marvel wanted Stan Lee to be the publisher, and apparently Chip, the son of Martin Goodman, was groomed to be the follow-up or the actual publisher, but it didn't come through, and so a couple years later, Chip and Martin created Atlas Comics. They copied so much in the format, like nobody else had these banners like that across, and a lot of similar characters, very much. I have an episode on Atlas Comics too, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but this was so much fun. 4 issues, and then the whole line got shut down. Kind of a fly-by-night situation. So Ditko and Wood is so good. And also, Ditko and Wood had worked on Thunder Agents together. And they're just a fantastic team. That's so beautiful. folds at the close. I wish it would have been neat to hear what Steve Ditko thought of various inkers over his work. I like that. That's kind of Spider-Man-esque progression of panels. Maybe. So, cool stuff. I never saw it, though, because the distribution was so limited because the main distribution chamber, they just didn't want this. They were kind of like, no, we're going to shut it down. And also, people could see it was clearly a send-up of Marvel. Now, this is great, too. 4 issues. It only lasted Stalker, and it's been sold. Written by Paul Levitz, new kid on the block who would eventually become editor-in-chief, and other titles. And he's one of those guys that I feel really made DC work for so many years. It's just really strong stuff. And I feel like the day he retired, which was around the turn of the century, that I don't know, DC suffered a little bit managerially. That's the right way to say it? Managerially. I love this bad guy. I love that design. I used to draw that. Oh, man. Give me that soul. Give me that. Oh, man, it's beautiful, beautiful. So, also, roughly around this time, Kung Fu Fighter, Richard Dragon. They actually reprinted this in a softcover, I think. Rick Estrada, who's been floating around a lot of secondary books for DC, gets the wood treatment. And look at that. That's just amazing. He could pick anybody and make it Wally Wood. Wally Wood. I'm just drinking this in. That's pretty cool, that creepy character. I don't mean creepy as in creepy magazine, I just mean, but yeah. And I think Ditko spotted his own blacks on his pages more so than others, but this seems more like Wally Wood contributing his the clothing effect, the double lighting and such that's in the inking line stage. So, okay, and then this is really odd. The Sandman. Well, this whole series is odd. This was kind of like the last gasp that Kirby had with his contract with DC Comics. And if you don't know what I mean, you could find a million, places to find out about it. And I'll try to talk you out of watching my show. But it's towards the end, so it was all Jack with Mike Royer, but then it became Michael Fleischer, the script. Joe Orlando was the editor. Kirby is no longer his own editor, and Wally Wood was inking this. Now, I can tell by the features on the guy who's drowning. It's clearly Wally Wood. Look at double lighting there on, what was it, Glob and Brute, Brute and Blob. Those characters are so freakish. Man. That's a creepy character too. But it's weird because it's almost like Wood's efforts are wasted because Kirby was so, I don't know how to put it, mechanical in the way he rendered things. It did help a lot. I thought it's great. And he actually, unlike most people, knew what to do with later stage Kirby. Attaboy. Little Blob saying, Attaboy, Sandman. Lovely. Now, also at the same time, I'm going to Get this. I, at the moment, can't find my copies of Hercules in my collection. This is a DC short-lived book called Hercules Unbound. I think that's an Ernie Chan cover. I could be wrong. But the first 6 issues were a young star called Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And I gotta show you that. Even then, I mean, he was doing Jonah Hex for the first year or so. You could just tell how he mastered the human form and figure work and movement. Like grabbing that lamppost there. Stunning. And then it was even one issue where New Kid on the Block, Walter Simonson, got inked by Wally Wood. Really neat stuff. I like this is old original art. I like how the Zipatone tarnishes over time. Some people don't like it, but I do. Now, there's gotta be something else. I have something else. Hang in there, everybody. Around the same time, Wally Wood lent his inking abilities to the revived Justice Society. This is a Brian Bolden cover. Beautiful. And I was very much a Marvel zombie. I didn't, I sneered at DC because I was a snob. But my cousin Chris in Cleveland actually had this. And I read through it. And I really liked the artwork. And it is, I think, Rick Estrada and Wally Wood. See, they took the credits off the actual issues. They don't really go into, see, Joe Staten and then Keith Giffen and Wally Wood. Okay, that might have been, I don't know. Might have been Keith Giffen. Maybe not. But I'll see stuff that's definitely Keith Giffen later on. So, and I just remember reading his copy of it, and I was like, this is pretty cool. Brainwave. Remember that was weird. I was like, the X-Boy Wonder is like an adult version of Robin. It was my first exposure to Earth 2. Ah, lovely coloring there. And there's Power Girl. And covers by Ernie Chan. He did like a ton of covers. So here comes Keith Giffen, who I was already a fan of from... Was that? I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have a specific... I didn't even look it up. I failed as a host. So these characters are great, though. And I think Wally Wood designed Power Girl. I'm not sure. Like, Green Lanterns never looked that cool. Here we go. We got the Giffen stuff. And you can tell by his... Especially right there, that hand he does. He must have done that hand 1 billion times in the 70s. It's just like... And I like drawing it because it was fairly easy. You just curl these up and there you go. And it's indispensable. You can use it for everything. You could use it when you're holding stuff. You can hold it when you're in thought. Or talking to someone and say, hey, look at that. So, really beautiful stuff. And... yeah, oh boy. And continuing later on, Dr. Fate would have a mini-series with... actually, the short-lived series with Dr. Fate, Giffen, and... who was it? Marty Pasco, yeah. And then it became a mini-series of Jan DeMatteis and Keith Giffen. So it's got all these cool, like, fan art type stuff, and I don't say that in a bad way. This is kind of stuff, you know, fans, the growing fandom was starting to love all the experimental stuff. So when I say fan, I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner. Wow, I love it. And he did quite a bit. So I really recommend this trade. They may have a hardcover of it already. Not sure. So, oh man, and I can show you this. His Superman was very much like a Mike Fleischer. No, not Mike Fleischer. Fleischer Studios cartoon. I can find it here. Man, now that I believe is penciled and inked by Wally Wood. That's got to be, because he draws people like toy soldiers from a distance. And I'm not saying that in a rude manner. I'm just saying this. That's what I think. Yeah, he loves doing that kind of stuff too. There's our man. Our man's got a cool power. He's like super strong for an hour, so it's like, we got to finish this guy in an hour or I'm toast. So I love that panel. It's just so perfect superhero kind of panel where he's standing on the ledge ready to fight crime. So really good stuff. Really recommend it. Now, the last thing I know of, he had done other stuff. He had done some erotica stuff late in his life as well, and I'm not going to share that. But he went back for one cover to do character he had redesigned with great success. And this is a Frank Miller Wallace Wood cover. Okay, I'll see if I hold it still. Man, that's great. Oh, what a loss. He was so talented. He became a heavy drinker, unfortunately, and then he developed leukemia, and then he cut his life short because he was in such pain and such. And it was just a terrible... Wally Wood deserved so much better. He really did. He was just... Anytime... He made so many people happy, and whether he's penciling or inking or whatever, he's just phenomenal. And that was around 1981 that he passed away. So that's about it for now. And can't think. Like I said, there's a bunch of other stuff, but there's stuff I can't recall at the moment, or it's his wits end self-published stuff, which I may not have. But again, I'm just going by inking this episode. So anyway, if you want me to ink something for you, I've been a comic book industry pro for 30 years or so. You can hit me up on Facebook or on Twitter or on DrewGeracyComics@gmail.com. And I do all kinds of commissions. I do inking commissions and I do pencil ink commissions. And that's it. I could only wish to be like Wally Wood, but that's an aspiration that, all of us have. So, anyway, have a great weekend. It is Friday evening. I just felt very... I just felt like getting this out of the way right after the last episode because it was fresh in my mind. So, best to all of you, and take care.